It's quite a day. After many terror attacks, we were just walking up Jaffa Street towards Mahane Yehuda Market, and we're passed by all these police officers and cars, motorcycles, horses, only to find out there's yet another attack. Details are still emerging.
That's the sound of Stacey Leavitt-Wright of Edmonton, reporting live on the streets of Jerusalem Wednesday. She recorded this shortly after she saw Israeli police converge on a butcher shop in the popular Mahane Yehuda Market and arrest 2 suspected Palestinian terrorists. Leavitt-Wright is CEO of Edmonton's Jewish Federation, but she's in Israel on vacation. Nevertheless, she found herself smack in the middle of the tension in the country as Israel faces its worst period of terrorist attacks in over a decade. So far, 11 Israelis have been killed in 3 separate attacks, beginning last week in Beersheba, then in Hadera, and then Tuesday in Bnei Brak. 2 of the suspects have ties to ISIS. And now the government is sending police and army patrols to fan out and hunt down collaborators. They're clamping down on border crossings, and Leavitt-Wright says streets are emptier than normal. Meanwhile, people are pivoting to working from home if they can, including Adir Krafman. He is a former top leader with the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs in Toronto. He moved back home to Israel just a few months ago.
Watching the parents of the victims, the loved ones of the victims on television, it's so heartbreaking. They show the different funerals that are taking place and things like that. These are really 11 worlds that were extinguished. There's really a feeling here of shared destiny between people, and it's absolutely crushing.
I'm Ellen Besner, and this is what Jewish Canada sounds like for Thursday, March 31st, 2022. Welcome to the CJN Daily, sponsored by Metropia. The latest terror attacks came just as Israel's government welcomed Arab foreign ministers to a milestone peace summit in the Negev desert, and also just ahead of the start of Ramadan. And now questions are being asked about Israel's intelligence service and the concerning connection of some of the gunmen to the Islamic State. Coming up, we'll check in with Adir Krafman. His hometown of Hadera was one of the crime scenes. But first, here's what's making news elsewhere in Canada right now.
I'm Dan Held in Toronto, and this is what Jewish Canada sounds like.
If you're in the Toronto area on Sunday, look out for a parade of Chabad Lubavitch RVs that'll be rolling up Bathurst Street. A fleet of a dozen or more of these so-called mitzvah tanks will be stopping to hand out shmura matzah for Passover along the route and share some good deeds. And they'll also visit about a dozen synagogues. The parade is one of many being held around the world to honor the coming 120th anniversary of the birth of the last Chabad Rebbe, Menachem Schneerson. But the Toronto parade also has a bittersweet story behind it. One of the vans is brand new. It was just bought to dedicate to the memory of a 19-year-old Toronto yeshiva student. Mayor Likovetsky was killed in a car accident March 7th while volunteering in Cincinnati, Ohio. It was part of his studies at the Yeshivas Lubavitch School in Toronto. He was the youngest child in his family. He leaves behind 3 older sisters and his parents, who were Russian immigrants. Mayor's classmates and friends are organizing the parade to mark the 30 days since his death, and there's also a fundraiser underway to pay for the new vehicle. And we'll go back to Israel now, and Adir Krafman joins me now from Tel Aviv. What is the feeling? What has been people, what's it like now for you there?
There was a complete mood change with everybody trying to check in, find out, parents trying to find out where their children are, children messaging their parents to make sure that they're okay, trying to make arrangements to come home as quickly as possible. And then immediately images and horrific videos started coming in, both on the television screen and also in the WhatsApp groups of just a terrible gore videos of people getting shot in point blank. And it was not only terrifying to see people getting murdered senselessly like that, but also recognizing the street, recognizing the buildings, seeing, remembering that I used to walk along that street, Herbert Samuel, all the time. It made it very personal. And then within 10 to 15 minutes, all my other messages on WhatsApp started popping up like, "Hey, are you okay? I know that you're from there. Is your family okay?" So it was really a little bit overwhelming, all this inflow of information, while we were trying to figure out how many people have been hurt. Do we know anybody that has been hurt? And I have to tell you, it's a scary feeling. It's a scary feeling. I know that my family members are more the ones that have lived here for years. They're more used to that kind of experience. But it was something that I wasn't used to for a very long time, and definitely something that my wife, that is Canadian born, she was definitely not used to that kind of experience. And it's not just that one day. There's the lingering effect now of don't go out. If you can work from home, ask your boss to work from home. Things like that really hamper the daily life that goes on. So it's not just a one-off incident. This has an effect not just obviously on my family, but the entire community and the entire city.
What are people saying, Adir? Do they think that this is just another, okay, it's Ramadan starting on April 1st, so this is the usual incitement that happens around this time of year, which happened, last year too, and led to a war?
There's a few conversations happening at the same time. One is the conversation of this is our reality here. For even before the state was established, there were those who wanted to extinguish Jewish life here in the land of Israel. They believe that Jews don't belong here. They hate Jews to the core, and this is a sort of a constant factor that will never change. It's a part of our reality. And then there are different conversations about, okay, why is this happening now? Is it happening now because there is the Negev conference, which is really unprecedented? Going to Ben Gurion's grave, being greeted with hugs by Israeli officials, and talking about building a shared future. So is it a reaction to that, similar to previous peace initiatives that had to do with Israel? That's one potential. Is it just religious fervor in the lead up to Ramadan? That is also a possibility. But then the conversation goes to a different place, and that is what do we do? What do we do now? And there are a few complications with the question of what do we do now, because two of the incidents, the perpetrators weren't Palestinian; they were Israeli citizens living in Israel. So there isn't a security barrier that you can reinforce. There aren't measures that you can take in the West Bank and Judea and Samaria that you can do within Israel. We live together. We're neighbors. We share the same infrastructure. So that's one component. The second is that we're not talking about some sort of coordinated effort, like, for example, Hamas sending hordes of suicide bombers into Israel. There's no real address to go after. The second component is that as we lead up to sort of a holiday period where you have Passover and Ramadan, there are negotiations between Israeli and Palestinian leadership about ease of access to places of worship and more travel and work permits for Palestinians in an effort to bring down the pressure, in an effort to reduce the likelihood that tensions will escalate in the same way that they did last year. And this really, throws a question of, okay, so these attacks are happening. Do we move forward with these gestures, with these measures, or are we just reducing our security, and we're allowing, we're opening the door for a possibility for more attacks?
But that leads me to my question about the fact of reaction among Arab leaders in the neighborhood. So we saw that Mahmoud Abbas actually said that this was wrong. How are people reacting to Mahmoud Abbas's comments?
People aren't paying attention to what Mahmoud Abbas is saying as far as I can see from my vantage point. People are looking at the reaction from Arab Israeli leaders within the Israeli political system, one from the coalition and one from the opposition. So both Ahmed Tibi and Mansour Abbas from Israel's two Arab parties have condemned the attacks. They have repeatedly said that this doesn't represent the values of Israeli Arab society, and that they call on, obviously, de-escalation, and they call on people, both Jewish and Arab, to not take matters into their own hands, because that's a real possibility of grieving families trying to take revenge, people being scared of each other on the street, and things can escalate very quickly.
And also, there's a lot of questions being asked. Final question: a lot of people are asking questions about Israeli intelligence and the Shin Bet. How did they miss this? Why didn't they know that people who were being released from prison and have had previous records would be likely to, offend again?
I think the question I would ask is, how do you balance the delicate, community to community relationship within Israel? How do you maintain dignity for all of your citizens, regardless of their, ethnic background or religion, while still maintaining, personal security for everyone involved, Jews and Arabs alike? But I can tell you that, living in Israel and living in Tel Aviv and seeing how people react, there's a real sense of defiance in that, we will not be deterred by terror. We'll continue to live our lives. We love living here. It's really a great place to live. I walked along the beach today, and I live very close to Jaffa. So you see a mixture of people of all shapes and colors and faiths, and it's really a beautiful thing to see. And I'm also really thankful for the reaction that we saw here of foreign governments, and I saw that in the National Post. It was also the front page. It really makes us feel heard, which is really important, especially with condemnations from all types of world leaders. So that's something that brings a little bit of comfort.
And that's what Jewish Canada sounds like for this episode of the CJN Daily, sponsored by Metropia. Integrity, community, quality, and customer care. And today's listener shout-out goes to Ryan Insolaco of Richmond Hill, Ontario. Meanwhile, we'll end the episode with more from Stacey Leavitt-Wright's impressions of being in Israel during this dark period of terror attacks.
We have a number of friends and colleagues as well that my husband has from his professional life. And they did say to us before we came, be careful about going to the old city, be careful where you're going as we're leading up to Ramadan. And this could become more of a wave of attacks that we're seeing. This was a few days ago, so this was only after the second attack, that we should be cautious and vigilant. And I have to say, knowing about situational awareness, I'm certainly keeping an eye wherever I go and what's going on around me right now. There's great concern and of course, great dismay and upset that the young people are being killed right now on the streets, and it doesn't matter if they're Jewish or Druze or Arabs, they're all Israelis, and this is happening to all of them.